Hello, and welcome everybody. My name is Lena Fedisi. I'm the Student Services Specialist Senior in the Student Leadership Center. I am here to welcome you and welcome our very own guest speaker today, Dr. Alexander Patrick. He is the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at GCC, as well as the Residential Faculty for Social Sciences. He is here to talk to us about Black History Month and African American and the arts, his experience in that area as well. So with that, give me a little tiny minute so that I can do a brief introduction of Dr. Patrick. Outside of the educational world, Dr. Patrick-Rolando continues enjoying the world of the arts. Throughout his artistic timeline, he has consistently enjoyed working as a visual artist, a theatrical performer, a dance performer, and on occasion, a vocalist. Currently, his primary mode of artistic expression is through dance. He has trained and performed locally, nationwide, and internationally. Additionally, he uses his art to help fundraise for a number of charities. He is currently dancing as a company member of the Convergence Ballet and Scorpius Dance Theater in Phoenix. He appreciates the arts in every way and continues to work towards a shared value for the experiences of every being. Dr. Patrick-Rolando is thankful for his family and friends and all of the amazing and inspirational teachers, artists, and everyone that has supported and nurtured his talents. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Patrick-Rolando. Thank you.
Good morning or afternoon. It's 11:30, so good midday. I hope everybody is doing well. So with this, as an artist, we usually have to be very vulnerable. However, as a professor, we're kind of stoic and people forget that we're human and we have human experiences. But today, I'm pretty sure y'all are gonna learn more about my humanism than anything else. I was trying to think about what would I talk about and how would I talk about it. I'm thankful that you all asked me to be here. I appreciate it. I love the arts. I probably would not be here without the arts. I've done arts my entire life, but different forms of art. Most people these days usually know me as a dancer, but outside of dance, I have done modeling as well. That is actually me underwater in that photo. This talk and this discussion will be a discussion that includes photos of me in the arts as well as a history lesson, a brief history lesson. And I thought, oh, there's so many different forms of art that I could talk about, but I'm gonna talk about the ones that particularly involve my life. I want to start with the Harlem Renaissance. I started with this because this is really where a lot of our history started here in the US in terms of Black arts, because during this period of time, we had artists beyond the ones that you see here with Langston Hughes, Duke Ellington, Ma Rainey. Beyond these artists, there were so many other artists that existed during that time. But what they began to do during that period of time is to show Black people in a different way, to show African Americans in a positive light, show us in a way that we want it to be seen, as opposed to depictions of us from other people. So I wanted to start with that. Hi, come on in. And then I also wanted to bring in Aaron Douglas here, because this is just the piece of Aaron's art here, but Aaron was one of those artists that started to paint us in different ways and allow us to see ourselves in ways that other people didn't see us. We could envision the future that we wanted to do. And that's what I've done with the arts myself. This is one of Langston Hughes' quotes. An artist must be free to choose what he does, and certainly, but he must also never be afraid to do what he might choose. Art usually challenges the way that people think about life and what people think that you could be or you could do. That also upsets a lot of people because you don't fit into the box that they want you to be. So when you're thinking about who you want to be as an artist, what stereotypes are you going to challenge? What thought processes are you going to challenge? Are you going to be bold enough to stand in what you're actually challenging? We have a lot of artists that we know about, and then we have a lot of artists that we might know for a moment, but they began to challenge the status quo. And then we don't hear from them for a long time. Why? Because they had to stand against the people that were saying that what they were doing probably does not go with popular culture and or the way that we think about the world around us. So as an artist, I have definitely been one of those people that have been bold in my choices and the things that I choose to do. How does that work? Being a professor, being an educator where people judge all the things that you do. It doesn't usually work all the time. But what I always remind people is that we're human. Before we're anything else, we're humans. We experience the world in different ways, and we bring all of those experiences to the educational setting. So I let my students know, guess what? I'm gonna probably see you in the grocery store, and if I wanna go dancing tonight, I might see you in a nightclub. Why? Because I'm a person, just like you. My job is education, but I'm also a person who enjoys doing all the other things in life. So that's part of how I manage doing what I do. I mentioned earlier that I'm a visual artist. I've done digital arts as well. I do painting, I do drawing, I've done all of those kinds of things. I did theater when I was in college. I used to perform with the students at the school, even if I was teaching some of them. I'd also end up on stage with some of them. I went to Louisiana State University, so this is one of our large productions. And at that time I was teaching and in grad school. So I was doing all of those things, and some of those people are also my students. I've done aerial arts. I'm down there in the bottom on the side of that one. I've also done improv theater. That's me up top with the afro. No, that is not my real hair, but I own it, so it's mine. Okay? I bought it, and I have a lot of it. And I enjoy those kinds of things. But I've done all sorts of arts. They're very minimal arts that I've actually not dabbled in, because I always like to try things at least once. And then I'll decide whether or not I like it or continue on with it. And some of it helps you grow. How many of you are familiar with Raven Wilkinson? Anybody? Nobody's ever heard of Raven? Yes, ma'am. She was with the Ballet Russe. She was with Ballet Russe. She's noted as the first African-American dancer to have signed a major contract with a ballet company, but she also couldn't tell people she was black. She couldn't enter establishments all the time with her company, but she had to promise that she would pass as white, and she wasn't. If you know anything about black people, we come in every shade, and she was one that could actually infiltrate that world because she was fair-skinned. I bring her up because, again, as I've told you, I've done all these other forms of art, but right now, the art that's in my life the most is dance. So that's the one I'm gonna talk about, dance, and I'm gonna talk about what I've used it for and how I continue to use it in my life. So I call this presentation Gratitude because this first part, I'm thankful for these people. I'm thankful for the Harlem Renaissance for changing the way that people looked at us. I'm thankful for people like Raven Wilkinson. Even if she had to pass as white, she was breaking the boundaries and saying, yes, we could actually dance too if you gave us a chance to do it. Mind you, you only give the ones a chance that might look a little bit more like you than the others, but she still lets you know we could do it if you gave us a chance. Katherine Dunham. How many of you are familiar with Katherine Dunham? Just a couple of people, okay. Katherine Dunham is known as the mother of black dance. She has created her own style of dance, and there are plenty of ballet companies that study her style of dance, but she also had the official first full black dance company in the US. Most people don't always think about that, but she had her company, and she didn't die too long ago. That was her company. It was opened in 1931. That's also her there dancing. I'm thankful for people like that, but we also didn't get here alone. How many of you are familiar with Lester Horton? Any dancers in this room? One? Okay. You familiar with Lester Horton? Okay. Lester Horton had his own style. This is the person that trained Alvin Ailey in Horton's style of dance. I studied Horton as well. I worked with the Horton Company for 2 years in Georgia before I moved here. But this is probably the style that was one of the hardest to do, but it kept you in some of the best shape because of the structures and the way that you had to move your body. But I brought Lester Horton up here because we don't do this alone. Even though Lester Horton was white, he also had the first integrated, fully integrated and openly integrated dance company. And Alvin Ailey trained under Lester Horton, and after Lester Horton died, Ailey took over his company, and then a few years later, he opened the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, which still travels and still tours today, and they usually come here to Arizona. At least one of the dancers are from Arizona. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Clifton Brown, but Clifton Brown grew up here in Arizona. He started dancing at the Black Theater Troupe downtown. If you've never been there, you should go. I've danced for them for a number of years, and now I do choreography for them a lot of the time. But in their show, Black Nativity, which was also written by Langston Hughes that I showed you earlier with that quote, all of those connections, you still have connections right here in Arizona. And starting to engage with it, you learn more about that history. Now, I can't say I learned about these people at the beginning of my dance career, because I started dancing with the Baton Rouge Ballet in Louisiana. It was a predominantly white company, and you learned about white history in dance. When I moved to Georgia, I danced with the Atlanta Dance Connection. They were people who were trained in Horton, who had already worked with Ailey, so they started to teach me about the history of the forms that they had. And that's how I began to learn about these groups. I would never have known about these groups had I not worked with those companies in Georgia, and had I not done a little bit more research as well. But they do teach you about these groups, right? Arthur Mitchell, how many of you are familiar with Arthur Mitchell? At least one? Who is Arthur Mitchell? Absolutely. Arthur Mitchell was the first African American to be signed with the American Ballet Theater in New York. He also had his own dance company, the Dance Theater of Harlem, which also tours as well, continues to tour. Right? That was the first real traditional technical company when it comes to ballet that's still in existence at this point in time in terms of long-term with African Americans included, right? So how did I get here? That's your history lesson for today, just a little bit of the dance history in terms of African American history and dance, but how did I get here and what do I do? There's a few different things that I have incorporated, not just from me, but you can see it in all of these historians, all of these pioneers that we've had in the past. Being futuristic, I'm going to talk about each one of these. Being able to be open, be flexible in what you do, having discipline, and continuing to grow and knowing that we're never fully there. There's always more to learn. There are new techniques, there are new technicians that come along, and they change the style up a little bit. Are you willing to be open to those kinds of things? So continuing to do that. Being futuristic, and most of these pictures that you'll see, that you've probably seen popping up, those are me in various forms. Sometimes on stage, sometimes underwater, sometimes doing other random things that you'll see. So being futuristic is being able to think about the world in a way that you've never thought about it before, but also in ways that we've never seen it before. I'm doing things today that I never thought I would do, I never planned on doing. But when the world of dance came into my life, I was like, maybe that might work. Let me just give you all a test. Can you think about what you might be doing tomorrow morning when you're going to wake up? Just think about when you wake up. What does that world look like? Most of you probably know where you're going to wake up, hopefully. But you have a late night. Sometimes you forget, and how did I get here? I don't know. I was young once too, right? Most of us probably know where we're going to wake up, what or whom's going to be next to us, what time we're going to wake up, whether or not it'll be sunny outside. What about 10 years from now? What does that look like? I saw a face. What does that look like for you? Is it hard to think about? Why? It's so far in the future. You can create it in your mind. You can say where you want to be, and you can take the steps to get there, right? You can think about what that might look like and give it a possibility. When I came into the world of dance, never thought I'd be doing a lot of the things that I've done, working with the people that I've worked with, going to the places that I've been able to travel to dance. I never thought about any of those things. But I said, it might actually work. At first, and I mentioned earlier that I started dancing when I was in grad school. So I'd already finished college. I just decided, I'm just going to go back and do something else just for fun to get me out of the office. Theater was fun, but dance seemed like it would be a good class. My first class, dance class, was taken on a college campus. Where I was from in Louisiana, I grew up on the outskirts of New Orleans, the little cities around there, and we didn't have dance classes where I was from. We didn't have dance studios, so I never thought about it. But once I gave it a try in college, yes, I did fall on my butt the first time that they asked me to do one of the dance moves, but I got up and laughed about it. Everybody was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine." The teacher said, "You look like you enjoy this. While you might not be good at it yet, you look like you enjoy it." And I said, "I do enjoy it." She invited me beyond that class to come to the studio. And I said, "Okay." And I took classes with 12-year-olds. Mind you, I was in my mid to late 20s, 27. In classes with kids who said that I was the age of their parents. And I just continued to laugh and enjoy it because it was fun. I was perplexed by how they could move their bodies, and I was like, I know I have muscle, but why can't my leg go up above my head if theirs can? They're 12. What's happening here? So that curiosity let me say, what if I could do this in the future? So I just said, okay, I'm gonna start taking classes. And the company directors asked me if I would come to class more often. The teacher that I took, this is one of the directors at the company, that's Miss Susan Perlis. She taught at Louisiana State University and for the Baton Rouge Ballet Theater. And I decided, I didn't think I had enough time. I was in grad school. Whenever you all get to grad school, trust me, it's a lot of work. But I knew I went to the gym often. If I can make time for the gym, I can make time for a dance class if I decided I wanted to do this. So I put it in my life to say, yes, I will go 4 days a week and allow them to push me, and I will give it my all and try. So I saw that in the future, if I did give them what they needed, they would invest in me and I'd be able to become the dancer that they're trying to make me into. That's what futurism does. It allows you to create the future and then think about the steps you need to get there. So as you all are thinking about what you're going to do after college, you're already doing those things. You know you need to take classes, you know you need to finish this degree, go to this college, transfer, or whatever it might be that you need. So you're already doing these things. It's just figuring out how do you do that towards the arts if that's something that you want to do in your life. And we do that every single day when we start to think about what's going on in the future. And most of us envision ourselves in the future a lot. We just don't think about 10 years down the line. I didn't think about 10 years down the line at that time. Another thing you have to do is be flexible. That is me with another dancer on my back. Did not think that I could lift a human like that and releve on my toes, raise my own body up, but we gave it a try. What I mean by be flexible in terms of the arts, being open to trying so many different art forms. I wasn't stuck with ballet. And because of that, I've been able to dance with a lot of different people in a lot of different forms. If I was only stuck on one form of art and I only enjoyed one form of art, I probably wouldn't have done all the things that I do. And a lot of people get into that space where they're not able to just appreciate other things for what they are and give it a try. So if you're going to think about arts, think about being flexible. And that's one of the things that I did with my life. I said, okay, I can be flexible. You want me to dress like a penguin? Grant, I will do that. And yes, I did do a role as a penguin. I forgot the name of the show, but it was in New Orleans. It was before I moved here, the year before I moved here. But I danced as a penguin. It was fine. I wasn't used to that, but it gave me an opportunity to dance with KM Dance Project in Louisiana. So think about being flexible. Think about trying something new. The artist that we talked about at the very beginning, They were open to doing something that was out of the ordinary for them. They wanted to do it, they tried it, and it took them far in their lives. The same thing with you and anything that you do in your life. Be open to be flexible. With a rigid mind, we get stuck and we don't get that mind expanded. And we don't know what other skills can come from that, what other opportunities can come from that. I've also been the person, depending on how the wind blew in my life, I decided to go that way and not fight the current. All right? The wind blew hard enough, I'm like, okay, maybe there is something to that in giving me this opportunity to do this, so let me try it. So be flexible with the arts. Be disciplined. What I didn't tell you all, I used to be in the military as well. I was in the military for 8 years before I danced. When I stopped in the military, I said, I need something else physical to do. That's when I saw the ballet class. I also saw yoga, but hated that. It didn't work for me, but I tried the class. Tried it, did not work for me. I just finished that one out. That's 17-year-old me in the Army. That was 2001, I want to say. Yes, 2001. So you have to be disciplined in order to grow. It's not going to happen overnight. Many times we get into the space where we think we need to have something overnight. All of these artists that I talked about at the beginning, their talents, their skills, where they got to in life, it was through persistence. It was through continued growth. And if you have danced, even if you've done anything, usually we have to work for it if we want to be good at it. Some things, okay, we're naturally good at those things. I'd say the best teachers are the people who had to work for it, because they have to learn how to do it in order to explain it to you. If you didn't have to learn how do you explain something that just works for you? You don't understand why people can't do it, because it makes perfect sense that your body should be able to do these things. When you learn through consistent discipline, consistent work ethic, you will be able to explain it to other people and help them gain that skill as well. Right? So you got to remain disciplined, because there are going to be times when you're going to be challenged to do things that you don't know whether or when you'll be able to do that thing. But if somebody is investing in you, then chances are they know that it's possible. Stay persistent, stay disciplined, and keep working on it. Yes, I was in classes with 12-year-olds and I couldn't get my legs even to my waist. Now I have no problem lifting them and staying with it. But it took years of consistency, years of discipline, years of not giving up, even when I couldn't do it the first time. If I couldn't do a pirouette, a turn, I had to keep trying, right? And over time, some things will make sense to you, other things won't. Even today, I still learn new things every time I'm in a ballet class. And the ballet classes or the dance classes, they are not for the teacher. They're for you. The rehearsal is for the teacher. The rehearsal is for the choreographer. But when you're in class, you're supposed to be figuring out, what is it that I'm doing well, and what things do I need to continue to work on, and how do I build the muscle and the skill to do that thing? That should be applying to anything that you do in life. When you go to class every single day, that class is for you. The test, the exam is for the teacher. The class is for you. Figure out what it is that you don't understand about the lecture. What do you need to work on? What do you need to study? Build on that thing so that when the test comes, it's easy. You've learned all of those skills. All of these people in our history of art, they continue to build on those skills that they need, but understand that the class, the assessment, it's for them. So when you're in class, do the best that you can to remain disciplined. Continue to grow. Continue to be open, right? We don't ever just get to the point where, okay, we're the best artists in the world and there's nothing else we can learn. The world continues to change. Dance, it continues to change. Yes, a tendu is just extending the leg and pointing the toe, but how do you want me to do it today? Your mind might work a little different. You want me to turn it in, turn it out, lift it a little bit, whatever it might be. There's a whole lot that you learn from those artists that you come in contact with. And if we're not open, then we won't build our own skill level in creating new things. We're going to create the same things that other people have already created. So remain open and continue to grow. In this show, this was in the New Orleans Museum of Arts, and I was doing a piece. This piece was specifically about incarceration. So I have on a jumpsuit, It's just tied around my waist, but I have on a jumpsuit there. My dissertation was also focused on formerly incarcerated males, black males in New Orleans in particular, because we're usually 1 in 3 of us have been arrested and incarcerated or have some connection to incarceration. My brothers have been incarcerated, my uncles, and so have my stepfathers. So I still use the arts to talk about the lives of others. So when I say I want everybody to have an appreciation of the experiences that everybody has, that other people have in life, I bring my own life experiences to the art that I'm able to create. Yes, I dance a lot of things that other people create, but I also have the opportunity to do it myself, because I don't want to just leave a legacy of I was just a dancer. No, I wanted to say dance is one of those things where we connect without words. We don't need words. People don't need words to understand each other. We should talk to each other because it helps fill in the gaps and the details. But we know human emotion, we know human experiences, and we can look at others and see where we share in those experiences. So I do bring those to anything that I create, not just me dancing. Give back. This is me with a team of individuals that have worked together for about a decade. We did an event for Big Buddy, and I usually do a lot of charitable events where I work with community members in teaching them dances, but they also bring their skill and their funds to help support different organizations. And this was an organization that raised money for children. What you don't see or really know about the people in here is that we have judges on these pictures, we have mayors up here, we have news anchors, we have chief financial officers, we have doctors, medical doctors, other dance instructors, we have dentists. That's a whole plethora of people that bring what they do to the community. And what we did is train them in the art of dance. So I use dance for social reasons as well. So I try my best to make an impact in my personal life as well as what I do here in my professional life. And then, don't forget why you do it. Inspire others and pass it on. Some days I'm like, I don't know if I have it in me today. When you're 40 plus, it doesn't always feel good to do some of the physical things that people are asking you to do. But then when I see the kids that I get a chance to work with every year, I see the ones that they're looking up and they don't see many people sometimes that look like them. I said, okay, I got at least one more show in me here. At least until somebody else younger can show up and they can take over. But you always need to remember why you do what you do. So inspire the generations that are coming behind you and pass those talents, the skills that you have, what you've learned, pass those things on to the next generation so that it's not just ending with you. And that's what I try not to do because I've learned from others. Even though some of those people that we've talked about, that I talked about at the very beginning, they're no longer with us. The legacies that they left, they stay with us. The companies that they built, they're still here. They're still thriving beyond those people. And I want to do the exact same thing for the generations that come after me. So continue to inspire others with with what you do. And then don't be afraid to be bold. Yes, I work as a director of DEI, so I focus on a whole lot of things: race, disability, sexual inequality, gender inequality, pay structures. There are a whole lot of things that come along my way, come across my desk, and the topics that I get a chance to talk about. I do those with the arts as well. I sometimes will just challenge stereotypes, everyday stereotypes in my own life by just walking down the street. Maybe I have on a pair of heels that day because I felt like it. That's what I got. I like boots, but I also like a little bit of height. I know I have some, but I'm already standing out, so why not stand out even more? So I continue to do those kinds of things, right? So you can't be afraid to be bold with the art that you do because it's already going to draw questions. You're not going to be able to please everyone with the art that you do. But my goal is to make people think about the world that's around them. Why couldn't I do the things that I do, right? Why couldn't or why should we pay attention to what we do and the impact that it has on others? If you don't see, I do have the American flag there that I'm crying out tears, but I also have ropes around my neck. Even though I haven't physically experienced what my ancestors did, I do know what it feels like to be ostracized. I do know what it feels like to be punished for things that you can't necessarily control. Maybe not to the degree that some of them have experienced, but I do want to honor what they went through so that I don't have to experience those things. So I do that with the arts every single day, right? So outside of just what I try to do with the arts, I do continue to dance with dance companies here. This is a picture of Scorpius Dance. This was probably maybe 2 seasons ago. I don't have an updated one from this particular season. I'm sure one exists out there. I just don't have one. But this is one of the companies that exists in Arizona. We continue to do at least three shows a year. Our shows right now are all at the Herberger. But what I brought this up for, I came from Southeast Louisiana. People who look like me were 60% of the population in New Orleans. I moved to Arizona. We are 3% of the population here in this state. So it's not always that I'm going to see people who look like me. But does it mean that I don't belong in the space? No. And people have welcomed me into the space, and I'm super thankful for that. Doesn't mean that we don't have issues sometimes. One of the challenges that came up working with this company, I'm just sharing a little bit of the experience, is that we do a show called Vampire every year. And the director of the company usually buys the makeup for everybody, but she came to me and she said, "I'm sorry, I don't have makeup in your shade." Okay. We looked at each other for a while. I said, "It's okay, I got makeup, I'll bring it." In my mind, and later on we had a conversation about it, but not at that time because I was new here. But maybe, I think it was like 2 or 3 years down the road, I reminded her of that moment. I said, for people who come to your company afterwards, if you don't have makeup in their shade and you're buying makeup for the entire company, go back to the makeup store. I'm pretty sure you can find makeup in their shade. Or you could also ask them to bring makeup in their shade and you'd reimburse them because nobody else had to pay for their makeup, right? So stepping out of my own space into a new space where I would be definitely in the minority in terms of the numbers, I recognize that it's not always going to be intentional, but sometimes you'll be singled out in different ways. But I also give people grace to grow. And since that time, we don't experience things like that as to that degree, at least with me. The director talks to me and she brings things to me and asks me about things because she understood that I didn't hold that against her and I gave her an opportunity to grow for people who might come after me who look like me and don't look like the rest of the company, right? I'm still the only one in the company, and that's okay. It's Arizona. I understand where I am. But my goal is for other people, high schoolers that might want to come and dance for the company or other dancers in the community that might want to dance for the company, that they see, hey, there is a space for us in that company, and you can come to that company and enjoy it, right? I also dance for Convergence Ballet. Yes, I'm the only one there too. And that's okay. Again, I'm in Arizona and I recognize that. But I'm also taller than everybody else. You see there on the steps. I know I'm closest to the camera, but I'm very tall. So again, I was used to standing out. I'm okay with that. But there are so many little dancers that are in that at the school. This school is Ballet Theater of Phoenix, but the company is called Convergence Ballet, and we're located on 7th Street and Rose, which is just north of Bethany Home. That first company is on 7th Avenue and McDowell. They are at the Metro Arts is where their company is housed. So this is the Convergence Ballet, the group that I just showed. This was a challenging moment for us because the choreographer wanted the company to look monotone, like monochromatic. They wanted only one color in the piece. So I presented as a challenge to them, and they came to me and talked to me about it because they wanted everybody to be in the same color. However, the color on me would have been way more of a stark contrast between the costume and my skin color. So instead, they decided to make me one color as well, just put clothing on me that was close to my color, and I would just stand out in that way as opposed to changing the costume. They wanted to just make it that everybody is just the color that's closest to them. And I didn't mind it. I appreciated that they challenged the piece instead of taking me out of the piece because I didn't look like the rest of the company, and I would have been the only one not in the piece because I didn't have fair complexion skin. So my presence not only creates a space for others, but it also challenges the artists that are in these companies to think in a different way, to change the way that they think and change how they created pieces. What is it? Could they say what they wanted to say, even with a body that didn't look like the rest of the bodies there, right? So I stay in those spaces for moments like that. But at the end of the day, art makes me happy. If I don't have art, I'm probably gonna be quitting working at GCC. I'm gonna go find something else to do in life. So I keep the arts in my life, and I find a way to make sure that they stay in my life. The way that these other artists that I talked about at the very, very beginning, they found art and they wanted to include it. They had to challenge stereotypes. Sometimes they had to enter through back doors. They had to pretend they weren't who they were. They had to deal with racial slurs, I'm pretty sure. But I wasn't there. But they had to deal with those things. And I look at them as models for my own life. How do I manage doing all of those things? Sometimes I wonder. I do have a teenager. I do have a family at home. But some days I get up at 4 a.m. in order to make sure that he can go to track at 6 a.m. and I can get to work for 8 a.m. or 8:30, depending on what the day is. So sometimes my days are long. But when you're doing things that you love, I don't mind adding a few extra hours here or there. No, I'm not changing time. I'm just taking away from my hours of sleep, sorry. Taking away from my hours of sleep. But it all makes me happy, and I continue to find ways that it makes me happy. I will say, I challenge myself now, being at a different stage in my life, to do art in a different way. Maybe today it's not you're gonna be doing a split, but you can just go as far as you can and call it a day because you didn't go to the gym because I'm at that age where I have to warm up before the warm up. And I didn't get the pre-warm up, so we're not going that low today, and we're gonna be okay with that. So as you grow in your artistry, just remember it's okay to change with the arts, but just make sure that what you're doing makes you happy, and understand your life is not gonna be all work. And I say not all work because sometimes dance can feel like work, but it's what I love, it's my passion. Arts are my passion. Even if I don't dance and I know one day I'm gonna stop dancing, I'll just go back to the theater and I'll start doing theater because there are roles for me as an old man. I can play the grandpa, I'm okay with that. I still have art. And when that doesn't work, hopefully my hands still work so I can paint, and my mind still works so I can paint and draw, I can sing, I can do all of those other things. But it's all because I was able to be flexible, be open, continue with the dedication, and these are all skills that I saw modeled before me with the artists before me, and they opened a space for people like me, right? With that, I wanted to open the floor for questions. I didn't want to talk the whole time, so we have about 15-ish minutes for questions if people have questions, thoughts, concerns, worries. Yes, ma'am.
So you had the chance to travel
Yes.
throughout the world.
So, not throughout the world yet. I've danced in Cuba, and most of my dance has been here in the US. I used to work with a traveling dance company that traveled around the country here. One of the conferences that has allowed me to do that is the International Association of Blacks in Dance. Have anybody heard of that? Has anyone in here heard of it? Nobody. Okay.
So you audition, you are very talented.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to go through the audition.
You still have to go through the audition process because at that conference, they bring some of these larger dance companies. Now, when I did go through that, I was 30, 31, 32-ish, and I was like, okay, I passed those auditions, and I was offered positions, and I turned down positions because for me, I was at a different point in my life. I'm sorry, I'm not 19. I can't just move across the country or to another country to go dance. I have a career. I was a professor at that time. It didn't make sense to me. Wasn't logical to me to just say, okay, I'm going to quit what I'm doing to go dance over here. One thing you also have to know about dance and the arts, period, artists love what they do. I say that because it costs a lot to do art and you have to invest a lot, but the pay isn't always that good. So I fed myself as a professor. I took care of my life as a professor. So me quitting the company or quitting my job in Georgia and moving to Colorado to dance for Cleo Parker Robinson. If any of you haven't heard of her, you should look her up. She has her dance company in Denver, Colorado. And her company opened as a black dance company as well. I said no. I got an offer to go to the Joffrey Ballet to train and study for a year. I said no. I got an offer to go to Lula, Washington in California. I said no. I was like, I'm not gonna do these things. It didn't make sense to me, only because of the stage that I was in life. If I was younger, I might have said yes to that. If I was younger, I might have tried to, go ahead and I'm gonna go work with Deeply Rooted in the Midwest. I might go try to work with Ailey in New York. No, I just take classes with them. I love to learn from the people, but for me, it was not, I wasn't gonna be able to do that for myself because of the stage that I was in. Yes, ma'am.
Was it like more like you was going and gave up your profession, not being a professor, like you would have been going into like an internship or something?
Depends on the opportunity. For Joffrey, that was an intern. That would have been like a year-long program just training in their ballet, for their ballet company. With Cleo, that's a full company membership. However, I would have had to move to Denver to do that. And these companies I'm talking about, they travel around the world. The companies that I've danced with here, I've only traveled to Cuba and danced around the US here. But it just depends on the opportunity. But at that conference, it's an opportunity for dancers, for black dancers that come from other places in the country, for the major companies to see them, because they all sit there and they put you through 4 rounds of auditions. And the director that I worked with, he paid for us all to audition, and we had no choice but to audition. I think that was more for him, because he needed to know that his dancers were up to par. So we had to do the best that we could to get through those auditions. But also a good leader trains you in a way for you to have opportunities beyond them. They understand that you should leave them better than you got there. And us being able to make it through those opportunities, and some people did take the opportunities. I have people that I dance with, now they're dancing on Broadway and they dance with other national and international companies, but they were also much younger than I was, and that's what they did, was dance. So these opportunities were more appealing for them. Others? Don't be shy, I'm an open book. You can also take me in sociology. Nothing. Yes, ma'am. Yes, I am. I do teach less right now because I'm doing both administrative and teaching roles, but my classes start after spring break. I have Sociology 130, which is human sexuality, and I have Intro to Sociology, Sociology 101. I also teach in philosophy and religious studies, not this semester, but usually in the fall, and I teach Women's Studies 100. I teach drugs and society, sociology, that's 110. Deviant behavior, sociology 245. So yes, I am still teaching. It's just on a few less classes right now. Yes. Perfect. You teach this semester? I am here. Did I see another hand over here on my periphery? No? Yes.
So when you were going over these figures that they're so prominent in your field, and you kind of have like a little disbelief of the black knowledge in the room, which you said that that's due to the demographic area of that type of education, or is there any other factors to be able to say?
So the question, just to make sure I understand it, is as I talk about these different people that have been influential in how I've gotten to this place, and not many of them are known in this room, is it because of where we are, right? So I would say absolutely. I didn't learn about a lot of these figures until I moved to Georgia. Atlanta, Georgia was the first time that I was ever in a dance company that was all black. The first time in my life where we were the majority. So in that space, they taught us about blacks in dance and about blacks in the arts over the years, because we had to know the movement and the movement styles that we were doing. Where did they come from? What was the feeling? And we had to learn about the artists that created them. When I moved here, I asked people about the International Association of Blacks in Dance, because I learned about the American College Dance Association, ACDA, being here. I had never heard of that on the other side of the country. So a lot of it does depend on the demographics of where you are, but that also gives us an opportunity as educators, if we want to bring those into the spaces where we're teaching, and we have to intentionally bring that, right? If I was teaching a dance class and I'm talking about Catherine Dunham, or I'm talking about the Dunham technique, I need to let them know who Catherine Dunham is and what that looks like, what did her company, how they moved, so they would learn about it. But if you're not teaching Dunham style, if you're not teaching Horton, you probably wouldn't learn that about Horton, Lester Horton's company being intentionally interracial and being the first one. Right? So I think it does depend on where you are, what the demographic is of the places where you are, because I've learned a lot being here in Arizona that I didn't know there, so yes, absolutely. Yes?
Do you see dance as a political expression, or are you more art for art's sake, or how do you come down on that?
So if you, what I was talking about earlier, how I bring what I do here into the arts, because I've learned to dance, but I've also have never been the person to say, I look at dance in the way that people connect to it without words, and I know the emotion that it can pull from people. So I don't usually just do art for art's sake, not if I'm creating it. Yes, as a dancer, I dance other people's pieces, and sometimes those pieces are just the art for the sake of art. But in terms of what I create, I look at it as a form of, I want to say, life expression. While I may not be trying to change people's political views or impact them in that kind of way, I want them to understand that not everybody lives life the way that you do. So I might do something that is politically challenging when I do the art. That was part of what this picture, when I brought this picture up, specifically that one over there. We still continue with Black Lives Matter movement. So yes, the art that I do, sometimes it does invoke emotions that people may not always like. So I guess the short answer is yes. Yes. Others? Yes. Yes, I paint. I don't paint as much as I used to. I was in a talented art program when I was a kid, so I painted regularly then. And I told you we didn't have dance classes where I was from, in the city I was in, so I didn't know anything about the world of dance at that time. But I knew I could paint, I could draw, and my teachers found that out. And if you're in a small town, they usually go to church with you. So they told my parents, and they forced me to get in the art program, even though I just wanted to draw. I didn't want people telling me what to draw. But I knew that I could learn from them, so I learned a lot of techniques. So yes, I enjoy doing that. Singing, I enjoyed doing that. I grew up doing that as well. I just only started investing in dance because I was also aware that the body is only gonna go for so long. And when I figured out, hey, maybe I can invest a little bit of time and energy in this, I knew that my time doing it was limited, at least with the styles that I wanted to challenge myself doing. Because after ballet, I'll probably return to just doing ballroom. A lot of ballroom dancers are older dancers because it doesn't require you to bring your leg all the way up. You could just tendu, and it's great. It looks beautiful. So I'll still probably incorporate dance. I just won't perform as much. Others? We got like 6 minutes maybe? Yes. So sometimes I actually perform with the students here. It's been a couple of seasons since I performed with the students here, but I work with the dance faculty, and we've worked together to create grants. We had a grant a few years ago where I combined my sociology classes with the dance classes, the dance students, and we were able to bring in artists from other parts of the country as well as local artists here with that grant. And the students in the dance class worked with the students in the sociology classes to create pieces around social issues. So they had to learn about the social issue and create work around that, working with the students in my class. So my class kind of worked as the brainstorming with them, but the dance students actually did the pieces in their show. So I usually do that, and even without the grant, I do have, especially and particularly for my honors classes, I have a project where the honors students have the option to, instead of writing, they can create some kind of artistic work to cover some social issue. And it doesn't have to be dance. They do poetry. Some of them actually compose music. They write songs. Some of them draw and paint, and some of them actually do dance, and some do theater, and they'll do a skit. They do whatever it is. They get their families involved, and it's fun to watch. So I still incorporate art into my classes. Others? Don't worry, I performed in silence too. So it's okay. I think sometimes silence is the best thing because it's the most vulnerable form. It's slow, it's quiet, people can see everything, they don't even have music to distract them. It's only you and the audience. So every once in a while I create pieces that are just in silence, nothing else. Any last burning questions? Yes. Which one? Which one? Oh. So this one specifically was working with just a photographer. I have done a piece here at GCC with a local artist that coincided with this, and she was inspired by this, but hers was called Who Will Survive in America? And it was a duet that we did for our Diversity Advisory Council Awards. It's been a few years, but I did it right here on this stage. And it was just a duet focused on the way that our bodies are used and consumed, and it's hard for us to ever catch up. So Who Will Survive in America? It was the title of it. And the artist is Liliana Gomez. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's a local artist here. She's since asked me to take that song and create a piece around it, but I was like, I don't know. Your work was great. I'm not going to challenge that with my own perspective, but I think what she wants to do is really, really brilliant. She wants to pass that song to different artists of different backgrounds and let them create pieces based on their experiences, and entitle the entire show, Who Will Survive in America? So maybe in the coming years, maybe eventually I'll say yes to her, or somebody else will say yes, and you might see pieces that are only focused on versions of Who Will Survive in America, but all of the pieces performed together.
That's a reference to Jill Scott, right?
Say that again?
That was a reference to Jill Scott.
Mm-hmm. And I believe there was, I think Childish Gambino had I think it might have been his actual song. I don't remember exactly who that artist was, but it's somebody. I don't remember who the actual artist for that version. Well, I hope that through this you've learned a little bit about the impact of the Harlem Renaissance, the impact of these artists and their creation of new works. Not only new works, but new images of Black people in America, and the doors that they opened by either covering who they were, but showing the world that if you gave us a chance, we could do a lot of different things. And I hope that in the future, if you have the opportunity, take the chance to do something that you've not done before. If you have any interest in doing it, grow in that skill and pass it on to others, and hopefully you incorporate some kind of social message so that we all learn to appreciate our different experiences. And I thank you for inviting me. Everybody, thank you. Oh, and don't forget to be happy.